please write ready in the chat. There are 24 of us in here, so there should be 24 readies so that we know when to get started. Wonderful. Nate's ready to go. Starlena's ready to go. Asia's ready to go. Sterling's ready to go. It's nice to see you all in here on a Thursday. Kira, Alexa's ready to go. I'm so glad to see some of you. I haven't seen your names or your faces in so long. All right, we'll give it another. Lena, I'm about to explain. Can you just give me a second, please? So if you aren't on mute, please make sure that you go on mute. Wonderful. So I'm going to give it another minute. I'm going to put the link in here again. Make sure you are in this link. So the link that I just provided is your assignment for today. It's another insert learning assignment. And if you look, there are some sticky notes that are added in there, some highlighted portions of text that I've already added in there, and then a couple text-dependent questions. Yes, Lena, a couple text-dependent questions. So what you will do is as you read, you will use the highlight function on the left-hand side, and you will use the sticky note function on the left-hand side to annotate. I'm going to write this in the chat so it's very clear. So work expectation. I see your question, Jaylene. Hold on. For today. Expectation for today. You will read and annotate. Yes, Carter, give me just a second. Read and annotate and answer text-dependent questions. Okay. Thank you, Leah. So, Lena, the same way that we did this for Act 2, we're doing it for Act 3. So the same exact protocol goes. Jaylene, there are only like 6 questions. When we did this in school, we used to do this like no big deal. And we're about to start reading it together. Lena, with digital learning, all assignments are worth the same value. So what we are going to do in order to use this time well is we're going to start reading. So here are the characters we need. I'm going to play Higgins. Lena, if you have additional grading questions, you need to email me. We're not using this time for that. So I'm going to be Higgins. I need Mrs. Higgins. I need Pickering. I need Eliza. I need a Mrs. I always spell their name wrong. Mrs. Ensford Hill. Ensford. There's a Y in there somewhere. E-Y-N. E-Y. Ensford Hill. And I need a Miss Ensford Hill, who is also Clara. Then I need a Freddie. Okay? So if you, and I need a narrator. So, and if we don't have a narrator, then I will be the narrator. That's not a big deal. So I really need a Mrs. Higgins. Freddie, Abdul is going to be Freddie. A Pickering, a Eliza, a Mrs., and a Miss Ensford Hill. If I don't have volunteers, I'm going to just cold call, so please volunteer. For those of you who are just entering, this is your work for today. I'm a little bit concerned because we're taking too long to volunteer. I need some people. Asias is going to be, Asias, I'm going to be Higgins. Do you want to be Pickering? Is that okay? Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, who else? I need some ladies that don't need to actually be played by ladies. It can be played by anyone. Oops. All right. Hello, I need Mrs. Higgins. I need Mrs. E and Miss E. Come on, come on, come on. And we need Eliza. Come on. We're going to sit here and not get anything read, and you will have to do it all on your own if we don't have some folks that are willing to do this. Come on. Thank you, Delilah. I really appreciate it. So I need a Mrs. Higgins. I need a Mrs. E. I need a Miss E. I'm going to start cold calling people. Leia, can you please be one of our characters? Jalissa, can you please be one of our characters? Thank you, Leia. Which character do you want to be? Do you want to be Mrs. Higgins, Mrs. E, or Miss E? It's taking too long to get going, people. Brandon, will you be one of our characters, please? So Leia, you're going to be Mrs. E. Jalissa, you're going to be Mrs. Higgins. Brandon, can you be Miss E, please? All right, I need one more person to be Miss E because Brandon isn't responding. Anna, can you be Miss E, please? So, thank you. So we now only have 20 minutes to get going. So everyone needs to be on Act 3. I'm going to begin reading the narrator's portion. We aren't going to stop. We're just going to read through. So I recommend annotating and gisting as we go because you are being graded on annotations and gisting. So Act 3.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Is Mrs. E the long name? Like the one
And
that
Hill.
says Hill?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So it's Mrs. Higgins' at-home day. Nobody has yet arrived. Her drawing room in a flat on Chelsea Embankment has 3 windows looking on the river. And the ceiling is not so lofty as it would be in an older house of the same pretension. The windows are open, giving access to a balcony with flowers in the pots. If you stand with your face to the windows, you have a fireplace on your left and the door in your right-hand wall close to the corner nearest the window. Mrs. Higgins was brought up on Morris and Burne-Jones, and her room, which is very unlike her son's room in Wimpole Street, is not crowded with furniture and little tables and knickknacks. In the middle of the room, there is a big ottoman, and this with the carpet and the Morris wallpapers and the Morris chintz window curtains and the brocade covers of the ottoman and its cushions supply all the ornament and are much too handsome to be hidden by odds and ends of useless things. A few good oil paintings from the exhibitions in the Grosvenor Gallery 30 years ago, the Burne-Jones, not the Whistler side of them, are on the walls. The only landscape is a Cecile Lawson on the scale of a Rubens. There's a portrait of Mrs. Higgins as she was when she defied fashion in her youth, in one of the beautiful Rossettian costumes which, when caricatured by people who did not understand, led to the absurdities of popular aestheticism in the 1870s. In the corner diagonally opposite of the door, Mrs. Higgins, now over 60 and long past taking the trouble to dress out of the fashion, sits writing at an elegantly simple writing table with a bell button within reach of her hand. There is a Chippendale chair further back in the room between her and the window nearest her side. At the other side of the room, further forward, is an Elizabethan chair roughly carved in the taste of Indigo Jones. On the same side, a piano is in a decorated case. The corner between the fireplace and the window is occupied by a divan cushioned in Morris chintz. So this description, just so you all know, is describing a room that looks very similar from when we did our gallery walk. So keep this in mind when you're answering the first question. So, it is between 4 and 5 in the afternoon. The door is opened violently, and Higgins enters with his hat on. Who's my Mrs. Higgins?
Henry, wait, I'm Mrs. Higgins, right?
Yes.
Henry, what are you doing here today? It's at my home day. You promised not to come.
Oh, bother.
Go home at once.
I know, Mother. I came on purpose.
But you mustn't. I'm serious, Henry. You offended all my friends. They stopped coming whenever they met you.
Nonsense. I know I have no small talk, but people don't mind.
Oh, don't they? Small talk indeed. What about your large talk? Really, dear? You mustn't stay.
I must. I've got a job for you, a phonetic job.
No use, dear. I'm sorry, but I can't get around your vowels. And though I like to get postcards from in your parents' shorthand, I always have to read the copies in ordinary writing. You so thoughtful of send me.
Yep.
Okay,
Good. Higgins. Well, this isn't a phonetic job.
You said it was.
Not your part of it. I've picked up a girl.
Does that mean some girl has picked you up?
Not at all. I don't mean a love affair.
What a pity.
Why?
Well, you never fall in love with anyone under 45. When will you discover that there are some rather nice-looking women about?
Oh, I can't be bothered with young women. My idea of a lovable woman is something as like you as possible. I shall never get into the way of seriously liking young women. Some habits lie too deep to be changed. Besides, they're all idiots.
Do you know what you would do if you really loved me, Henry?
Oh, bother, what? Marry, I suppose?
No. Stop fidgeting and take your hands out of your pockets. That's a good boy. Now tell me about the girl.
She's coming to see you.
I don't remember asking her.
You didn't. I asked her. If you'd known her, you wouldn't have asked her.
Indeed. Why?
Well, it's like this. She's a common flower girl. I picked her off the curbstone.
And you invited her to my at home?
Oh, that'll be all right. I've taught her to speak properly, and she has strict orders as to her behavior. She's to keep to two subjects, the weather and everybody's health. Fine day, how do you do, and not to let herself go on things in general. That will be safe.
Safe. To talk about our health? What about our insides, perhaps about our outsides? How could you be so silly, Henry?
Well, she must talk about something. Oh, she'll be all right. Don't you fuss. Pick her brain and get on it with me. I've sort of bet on that I'll pass her off as a duchess in 6 months. I started on some months ago, and she's getting on like a house on fire. I shall win my bet. She has a quick ear, and she's been easier to teach than my middle-class pupils because she's had to learn a completely new language. She talks English almost like you talk French.
That's satisfactory at all events.
Well, it is and it isn't.
What does that mean?
You see, I've got her pronunciation all right, but you have to consider not only how a girl pronounces, but what she pronounces. And that's where they're interrupted by the parlor maid announcing guests. Mrs. and Miss Ensford Hill. Oh, Lord. Mrs. and Miss Enford Hill are the mother and daughter who sheltered from the rain at Covent Garden. The mother is well-bred, quiet, and has the habitual anxiety of a straitened means. The daughter has acquired a gay air of being very much at home in society, the bravado of genteel poverty.
How do you do?
How do you do?
My son Henry.
So,
Oh,
there you go.
sorry. How do you do?
Look, yep. And then who's Miss?
Me, Anna.
Okay, so Leia, you're Mrs.?
Yeah.
Okay, so Leia just went, so then Anna, and then Mrs. Higgins will jump in.
My son Henry.
There you go.
You're celebrated, son. I have so long to meet you, Professor Higgins.
Delighted.
How do you do?
I've seen you somewhere before. I haven't the ghost of a notion where, but I've heard your voice. It doesn't matter. You'd better sit down. Jalissa.
I'm sorry to say that my celebrated son has no manners. You mustn't mind him.
I don't.
Not at all.
Oh, have I been rude? I didn't mean to be. Parlor maid returns, ushering in Pickering. Colonel Pickering.
How do you do, Mr. Higgins?
So glad you come. You do know Mrs. Hesterford Hill, Miss Hesterford Hill.
Aside your line. There you go. Good.
Has Henry told you where we come from?
We were interrupted. Damn it.
Oh, Henry, really?
Are we in the way?
No. You couldn't have come more. Fortunately, we want you to meet a friend of ours.
Yes, by George, we want 2 or 3 people. You'll do as well as anybody else. The parlor maid returns, ushering Freddie. Oh, Mr. Ensford Hill. Sorry. God of heaven, another of them?
I do know.
It's like, Heidi-ho. That's how he's saying.
Heidi-o.
Mhm.
Very good of you to come. Cloning Pickery?
Yep, Colonel.
Colonel Pickery?
Yep.
Ideal.
Jalissa.
It's me?
Yep.
Again?
Yep.
Where?
Right below where Freddie says a Heidi Ho twice.
No,
This is
it's
Higgins.
it's Higgins. It says, "I'll take my oath. I've met you somewhere before."
Yeah. Who's Mrs. Higgins?
That says Higgins.
It says Mrs. Higgins. So Mrs. Higgins goes, I don't think you know my son, Professor Higgins. And then Freddie says, Heidi Ho. And then I say, I'll take my oath I've met you before somewhere. Where was it?
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
don't think you know my son, Professor Higgins.
There you go. Ready?
Ideal.
Yeah. I'll take my oath I've met you before somewhere. Where was it?
I don't think so.
It doesn't matter anyhow. Sit down. He shakes Freddie's hand and almost slings him on the ottoman with his face to the windows, then comes round to the other side of it. Well, here we are anyhow. And now what the devil are we going to talk about until Eliza comes?
Henry, you are the life and soul of Royal Society
Soirees.
Suarez.
That's like parties.
Okay. But really, you're rather trying on more commonplace occasions.
Am I? Very sorry. I suppose I am, you know. Ha ha.
I sympathize. I haven't any small talk. If people would only be frank and say what they really think.
Lord forbid.
But why?
What they think they ought to think is bad enough, Lord knows. But what they really think would break up the whole show. Do you suppose it would be really agreeable if I were to come out now with what I really think?
Is it too very cynical?
Cynical? Who the dickens said it was cynical? I meant it wouldn't be decent.
Oh, I'm sure you don't mean that, Mr. Higgins.
You see, we're all savages, more or less. We're supposed to be civilized and cultured, to know about all the poetry and philosophy and art and science and so on. But how many of us even know the meaning of these names? What do you know of poetry? What do you know of science? What does he know of art or science or anything else? What the devil do you imagine I know of philosophy?
Or of manners, Henry.
So we're going to pause there because we've only got 5 minutes left. And I really want to make sure that everyone is understanding what's going on in this text so far. First and foremost, thank you to all of my readers. For those of you who, Pickering and Liza, who didn't have the opportunity, thank you for volunteering anyway, / being told to do it because this is hard sometimes. Let's talk about it a little bit. Oh, I wasn't on. No, I'm not looking at the chat. Sorry. Okay. So I'm sorry that I was breaking up a little bit. I hope that you could understand and follow along. So what I want to focus on is what is the gist of what's happening so far? In the chat, this is how you're going to get your active participation for today. What is the gist of what is happening so far? Isabella, yes, you can still participate. So if you aren't sure what's going on, read Salise's gist. Salise is very much so on the right track. Yes, Jalissa, good. Okay, so let's pause here. If you still have a gist that you want to add, that's totally fine. Please add it. I want to just quickly go over what's happening. So we are introduced to some characters in a new way. One, we haven't met Mrs. Higgins before. How does she feel about her son, though, right? So we need to be thinking about what sort of feeling does she have about her son, because it's very clear that she has strong feelings about him. Then reintroduced to this family, right? We're reintroduced to the Mrs., the daughter, and the son, Freddie, right? From Act 1. We should think about why are we reintroduced to them? And then what's about to happen is Eliza's about to walk in and she's about to talk to people for the first time. Abdul, yes, exactly. So Mrs. Higgins thinks her son is disrespectful, right? And he tells his mom about the bet, right? So everyone is about to experience Liza after she's practiced speaking for months, right? This is her first test run. Does this all make sense so far? Okay. It's 9:29. If you are confused about this text and you want to ask a question, now is your moment for it. If you feel good about what we've read so far, make sure you finish reading, answer the questions, because we've already read about half of the act, so you don't have that much more to do. Remember, if you want to earn the incentive today, I recorded it yesterday. It's ridiculous. If you want to earn the incentive today, please make sure that you complete all of the assignments for the week by 11:59 today. I'm going to be sending out emails telling students how many assignments they've turned in. So that way you know how much you need to do today in order to earn that incentive. PM, Anthony, right before midnight. Kazi, yes, you are finishing the text-dependent questions and you're annotating. Bye, everyone. Passion, I'm glad you're in here today. Higgins goes to mom's house to test. Yes, Passion, you've got that gist perfectly. Good job. Hey, Richard, you came in late. Do you have any questions about what you're expected to do today?
No.
Was that you very quietly saying no?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me know if you need help, okay? All right. If there are no questions, there should be no one in this chat. Henry, stay around for a minute, please. Carter, Brianna, Karen, I'm going to remove you. Henry, can you please unmute so I know that you're here?
Let me call his mom. Did he leave?
I don't know. I'm assuming so. He just keeps on turning in blank assignments.
Yeah, I'm gonna call his mom. Let me call his mom right now.
Okay.
while I have you on here because he's been logging in and just staying there on the phone. And I call his mom and I'm like, so he was having technical issues yesterday
Okay.
where his Wi-Fi keeps going out. So he was like popping in and out of classes, and then I call his mom. I'm like, he's not participating, he's not doing anything. And his mom was like, my internet keeps going out.
Okay.
So I wonder if that's what's happening right now. And so he couldn't join the second class, but he was able to join the third class. And I know that they're having a lot of internet issues. So
Okay.
let me call her right now. And I'm like, so when he's not participating, I'm going to call you. Mom is like, yeah, I'll let you know what's happening with the internet.